All right, today we're going to talk about Greek or Hellenic civilization. This was started about 2000 BCE, so it's not as early as the River Valley civilizations. And this starts with Minoan and Mycenaean civilization. Now, if we look at it on kind of a bigger world map, it's here in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, if we look at it a little bit smaller, we can kind of see that Greece is it's just kind of like a bunch of islands that are piled together, and a little bit of the peninsula as well. But most of it is islands. Now, Greek civilization starts with really two distinct civilizations, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. Now, you don't have to know too much about the Minoans and the Mycenaeans other than the fact that they're really great sailors. And that's what helps them travel around between all these islands. You also have Homer, which wrote two extremely famous works of literature, the Iliad and the Odyssey. And these two books describe a lot of Greek history and a lot of their religious and cultural beliefs too. Now, their religious beliefs was something called Greek mythology. And this is a polytheistic religion which had many gods. And they have these myths or stories which explain natural events, like how the echo was formed or how evil and hope came into the world. But in these myths, the gods of Greek mythology had flaws. Okay? They were prone to anger, to drunkenness, to foolishness, to petty arguments, to adultery, things like that. And so eventually, the Greeks are going to come to rely more on themselves than on the gods. Now, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, they were conquered by a group of people called the Hellenes. And the Hellenes are basically going to continue Greek culture. And this is one of the reasons why Greece is referred to as Hellenic civilization, because of these people that conquered them. Now, Hellenic civilization was organized very strongly into city-states, which they would have called a polis. And this is a city that governed itself independently. And there were a bunch of city-states. And each one of them had a different type of government. A monarchy, which is where there's one ruler. An aristocracy, which is where the richest people rule. An oligarchy, which is a small group of rulers, like 3 to 5. And then a direct democracy. Now, this is what Greece is most known for. And this is where people vote on laws themselves. Now, there were two main Greek city-states, two major poli, Athens and Sparta. Now, Athens was the cultural center. This is where democracy first developed. It's where Greek philosophy first developed, which we'll get to in a minute. And they had a huge outpouring of art. It was also the trade center because they were such great sailors. They had a very strong navy. They had most of the trade coming in to that city. You also have Sparta. Sparta is the warrior city. They trained from very early age to be warriors. And they also had equality of all citizens. Now, equality of all citizens does not mean equality of all people. We'll get to the hierarchy in a minute. And women had a lot greater rights. They could own property. They could divorce their husbands in Sparta. Now, some of the contributions of Hellenic civilization or Greek is their philosophy. Their philosophy is huge. Because their mythology influenced them to rely on themselves rather than their gods, they came up with this idea of logic or reason that they're going to use to investigate the universe, society, and morality. And this is basically what they're doing is they're going to ask questions of everything, of whether something is actually true, and they have to prove that truth with evidence. Now, this often took the place of religion, although there were many types of philosophers which sort of combine it with religious aspects as well. They also have direct democracy, which is a big contribution, and the idea of recording all your history, great works of literature, of comedy, of realistic sculpture, architecture, scientific theory, and the Olympics are all sort of contributions of the Greeks. The Greek hierarchy consisted of basically three classes. The citizen, which is any adult male who owned land. Free people, which include men who do not own land, women and children, and then non-citizens, which are slaves. So even though some of these city-states had democracy, and things like Sparta had equality of all citizens, the citizens was a very limited amount of people. And they often had a lot of slaves, which they treated very harshly, as you can see down here. So oftentimes Greece is talked about giving democracy, giving power to the people, but doesn't really give power to the people if only adult males who own land can vote. Now, Greece did have a lot of violence in its history, and there are a few that you need to know about more than others. The first one is the Persian Wars. Okay? Now, Persia, we talked about Persia when in the Fertile Crescent lesson. But Persia came in and attacked Greece. They were expanding their empire. And during the Persian Wars, the Greek city-states united for the first time to sort of defend themselves as Persia was attacking. Now, once they get together, they are able to defend themselves and keep the Persians from overtaking them. And this includes the Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers sort of defended Greece for a matter of weeks. It also includes the Battle of Marathon, where you have a guy who runs 26.2 miles to warn that the Persians are coming. And then when he gets there, he falls down dead. And that's why we run marathons. Now, they defend themselves, and because of this, Athens, once they unite, Athens sort of becomes the capital of Greece. But that's not going to stay true forever. Now, Greece experiences a golden age. Because they're united, because they are peaceful, they're going to trade with each other, which also increases their prosperity. Now, after the Persian Wars, and after this time period of unity in this golden age, Greece enters the Peloponnesian Wars. And the Peloponnesian Wars basically consist of Athens and Sparta fighting each other. And Athens and Sparta, when they go to war, they pull all the other city-states into war with it. And so they go to war, and the Spartans win. And the Spartans then become the rulers. Sparta becomes the capital. Athens is no longer the capital. And this war, the Peloponnesian War, weakens Greece because they're fighting against each other. Sparta's army was reduced to like a few thousand men during the Peloponnesian Wars. Now, after the Peloponnesian Wars, a group of people that were north of Greece, known as the Macedonians, came in and they conquered the weakened Greece. And they are going to continue some of the aspects of Greek culture, but we're going to get to the Macedonians in Unit 2 in Classical Civilizations. And that is it for Greece. I'll leave you with Plato's Cave. If you're interested in philosophy, look into this.